Good evening, everyone. I'm Corey. Once again, don't hesitate to ask any questions. We have a lot to cover, and trust me, it's almost like a shotgun effect. So I want everyone to make sure they clearly hear me. And once again, when you ask the question, I'm going to repeat the question for the camera. We're going to cover the topics briefly of crabgrass, but mostly the broadleaf and the grub control. All right, so if there's two things, and I know I see a lot of familiar faces of people that certainly come in here all the time and people that have attended more than one lecture here, I want you to leave with two things. Two things for sure. Number one is pH rules the world, okay? It sounds like I've invested all my money into lime and pH products, but that's not the case. pH makes the world go round. Your body needs proper pH, your drinking water needs proper pH, your tomatoes need proper pH, and your grass needs proper pH, and that is achieved by liming. We can go into more details. We've gone over it over and over and over, but that is critical. When your pH is correct, then everything comes together. Now, we're very acidic in this county. We have sandy soils for the most part. We're on a coastal plain. We have acid rains, scrub pines, scrub oaks. These are all things that acidify our soil. But that's why our tomatoes taste so good as well, okay? So liming is the key. Can you overlime? You really can nowadays because of the improvements in lime, but typically your chances of overliming are very slim. Now, just as if you've gotten too acidic, if you get too sweet, the effects of the fertilizers are reduced up to 70%. So you could have the most expensive fertilizer out there, and you're not buying that $4 bag of lime, and you could be losing 70% of your effectiveness of your fertilizer. That's number one. And number two, without doubt, always read the directions. All right? Never assume just because you bought the same bag last year, it's going to read the same way. There are constant changes in chemicals, constant changes in regulations. Please read the label. All right? Those are the two most important things I need you to focus on tonight. All right, in terms of weed prevention, now you can prevent weeds from coming, and you can say, oops, I forgot about them, and I have to kill them after they arrive. In terms of prevention, you have to prevent a weed before you have a weed problem. The most popular weed preventer, this is organic, this is corn gluten. This is basically the sticky parts of corn that are applied very early in the season. If we don't have a foot of snow in February, then you can put it out in February. You can put it out in March. But you put this product out organically, completely safe for wildlife and kids and pets. You put this out early, and you will reduce your weed problem. Okay? Very safe, very organic, easy to use. Now, yes, the question is, can you put it in flower beds? You can put it anywhere. Now, keep in mind, most preventers are designed to create a shield. So you put this down, it is corn. So if you don't water it in, you're going to feed the neighbor's birds. Okay, so you put it down, you water it in, it melts, creates a shield that prevents weed seeds from coming in and weeds from growing up. Completely safe, organic, no worries. Not cheap, but effective. So you have to do preventers before you have weeds. So we're starting with preventers, but we're going to move on to post killers as well. So if you're saying, we're familiar with crabgrass and we've had a crazy spring of weather up and down, up and down, up and down. And you said, boy, I forgot step one. I forgot the crabgrass preventer. A very popular question. Corey, is it too late? Well, we know crabgrass prevention comes when the forsythia blooms. That's the yellow whip, the first color you see in spring. When you see that bloom, you know, or at least you should think about the fact that the ground temperatures are now warm enough for crabgrass to germinate. Okay? So then you get a chance to put on a preventer. Preventers can come organically, they can come with fertilizer or without fertilizer. Once again, whether it's organic or man-made, it's designed to create a shield to suffocate what's out there or prevent things from germinating. Now, the beauty of the modern day crabgrass preventers is the fact that you can put them on much later than ever. So products like Dimension, it's Dimension, not Dementia, Dimension, which is included in most of your modern day crabgrass preventers, will or can be applied 4 weeks later than most. Okay, so you said, boy, forsythia has been bloomed and we've gone from 18 degrees to 74 degrees, back to 29, now we're back up to 84. Is it too late? The answer is no. If you stop the germination of any crabgrass seeds, you're ahead of the game. Now, if you don't, the one I just showed you contained fertilizer. If you don't need fertilizer or you prefer to do your own style fertilizer, there are straight crabgrass preventers. This particular bag prevents broadleaf and crabgrass, okay? So it's a preventer. That means before you have a problem. Now, it's very important, and yes, sir.
Can you do that after your fertilizer or before?
You basically want to do this after. Once again, you're creating that shield. So if you fertilize first. Yeah, right, exactly. Because you don't want to actually break that shield down any more than you have to. So you would fertilize first, then apply your crabgrass preventer. Now what's nice about this guy is that you can use this in flower beds. You cannot use this in vegetable gardens. The corn gluten is safe in vegetable gardens. This can go in flower beds. Once you get the weeds out of your flower bed, you sprinkle this around and you can use this in the lawn and in flower beds. Now, we're going to touch on the fact of crabgrass. Most of the time, crabgrass is mistaken for, or I should say wiregrass or wild Bermuda is mistaken for crabgrass. All right? Crab lays flat like a crab. It has leaves that look like claws. Wiregrass is the one that shoots the long runner. People come in all the time. I tried this product, I tried Scott's, I tried this, nothing kills my crabgrass. It's because it's not crabgrass. One of the easiest ways to tell is to take a piece of the actual grass that you're questioning, put it in your fingers. If it rolls like a pen, like this pen does, that's crabgrass. If it has a flat side like the top of this pen, that's wiregrass. Wiregrass can only be killed when it's actively growing. And that would be sometime in the middle of this month. Even with the crazy weather, you should see it growing. It shoots a long runner, and it has a superficial root every 2 inches or so. So there's a big difference between the two. It is the grass of the South. Okay, it's basically brought to us by birds. It is wild Bermuda grass, known as wiregrass. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later on how to control that. But for now, so if you had a beautiful lawn or you're ahead of the game and you're worried about your crabgrass, you're not going to seed this spring, and you know that the dandelions and the henbit are all coming, then a product like Greenview is the right move for you. This guy is step 1 and step 2 in one bag. This has enough fertilizer, enough slow-release fertilizer to feed your lawn all the way through the summer, do your crabgrass prevention, and also kill your broadleaf. Okay? But this would be a product that you would not be able to seed with. Okay? Most crabgrass preventers will not allow you to seed. There are only specific ones that allow you to seed because it's creating a barrier. If you say that's all fine and dandy, but you know, I just want to prevent everything. I don't need to feed. I want to use turf truss. There are products like this from Bayer, season long. Once again, this is going to stop any weeds from growing, but you will not be able to reseed. You apply this prior to a weed, and you will have no weeds at all.
After you apply it, how long do you have to wait for it?
Well, for the majority of them, it's at least 2 cuts of your new grass. Okay, so that means if you would have to, if you planted seed, let's just say you planted seed in March, your new seed, you'd have to get 2 cuts of the new seed. If you didn't seed, you would have to get 2 cuts of your existing seed. That's a general rule across the board when it comes to applying any of these products. Some are longer, some are shorter. It depends on the season and the temperature and just exactly what you're attacking. The getting back to the wiregrass, okay, the #1 killer for the Bermuda grass and the wiregrass is Ornamec. This is the original killer. This is not cheap. It would help if I showed you the front. It is $55 a pint, okay? Now, most people despise weeds in general, okay? And we know now that weeds, the design for weeds, Mother Nature's design for weeds is that weeds will inherit the earth, okay? So, unfortunately, I see frustration in people. They go, gosh, I've limed and I fertilized and I've done all this and I'm still getting weeds. Well, you're going to get weeds. Weeds can grow in dirt that's completely poor. Weeds will grow just as equally well in healthy soils. But the Ornamec is the only one that truly controls wiregrass. If you apply it as prescribed, you should get an 80 to 90% kill of your wiregrass right away. It will not kill your good grass, okay? But as much as you dislike wiregrass, you cannot mix it any hotter, any heavier than as prescribed. Typically about 1.5 cups to 1 cap, depending on the time of the year. Yes, ma'am?
So that doesn't kill crabgrass at all?
It doesn't kill crabgrass, okay? This is strictly wire, the one that shoots that long runner that you're going to see typically around tax day. It comes to haunt you like everything else, like taxes do. All right, this little bottle on the side is known as a surfactant, and what that does, that energizes the chemical and makes it stick to the weed and actually helps the main chemical to be more effective, okay? Now, there's a lot of knockoffs when it comes to wiregrass kind of stuff. There's another one that all the gurus on the radio talk about, that's Turflon ester. It's almost exactly like this. We prefer the original, but Bayer has come up with one that is a Bermuda grass control, okay? Control. When you see the term control versus killer, that means that it will take multiple applications to kill it, okay? Now, if you and I were neighbors and you had Bermuda grass and I see it coming and it's going to invade my lawn, I could spray my lawn and the edge of my property with this product to keep it in check. If you and I were neighbors and you had zoysia grass and I have fescue and I don't want your zoysia grass to invade my fescue, this will also prohibit zoysia grass from coming over. And so you either love it or you hate it, one way or the other. So that is it on the wiregrass. We're going to move on to your broadleaf prevention. Now keep in mind, when you're trying to prevent, that's before you have a problem. It's critical. So there are combination products. You have products where your typical weed and feeds, you've all heard of weed and feeds before, okay? This means that it's going to feed your lawn and kill your broadleaf. The term broadleaf means anything that blooms. And there are roughly 200 different broadleafs in our area, okay? So the purple-headed one, the white-headed, the dandelion, these are, anything that blooms is a broadleaf, okay? Now, there are a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are a great amount of broadleaves that are very tough to kill. And the wild violet is one that comes to mind. When you're trying to kill wild violet, and for better or for worse, it is a rather pretty plant, but it's very evasive, okay? So wild violet, if you have that wild violet and it looks just like a violet, you would definitely want to make sure that your product lists wild violet on it. Most of your weed beater ultras, this product is an excellent product. It has about a 50% success rate with wild violet, but this will kill any broadleaf out there. Over 200 broadleaves. Now this comes in ready to spray. It comes in a hose end. The beauty of this guy is that Weed Beater Ultra works in any weather. It can work in cool weather where the rest of them cannot. But the number one beauty of this is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks after you spray, you're able to reseed. Okay, Weed Beater Ultra is one of our favorite products in terms of when you need to reseed early in the season. Folks, make yourself at home. All right. Any questions so far on broadleaf? Any? Nothing. Wow. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Is lesser celandine part of the broadleaf?
Yeah. It
My whole backyard is still.
is it okay. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's a very tricky one to kill. Are you comfortable with liquid or granular? I would. Weed Beater Ultra should give you a good run against that product.
So there's
A Weed Beater Ultra. Yeah. Yeah, Weed Beater Ultra. Yeah, and this comes in hose end and concentrate, and you should be able to get that under control. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Do you happen to know what the dilution rate is for the Weed Beater Ultra in the hose end? Sometimes those hose end sprayers just don't
Okay.
shoot out.
All right, so the question was, what is the dilution rate for a Weed Beater Ultra hose end sprayer? You have to understand that when Weed Beater Ultra is in a hose end, those little bottles are designed, well, if you get a pint, that's going to do 10,000 square feet. It's going to do an area twice the size of the store. Okay, so you'll be out there spraying forever, and it seems like nothing's coming out of the bottle. There are times when the actual tube does come dislodged from the mechanism. When you use a hose end, you're not putting water into that bottle. That bottle, the water from your hose is actually siphoning the chemical at the proper mix. To answer your question, it's typically 1.5 ounces per gallon, up to 2 ounces depending on the weather. But when you see Weed Beater Ultra in a concentrate, it'll say, we'll do 42,000 square feet in a quart bottle. You'll be like, good Lord, that's almost an acre out of a quart. It will see the term, it will say northern or southern. So that's only half the rate there. So you only get 21,000 out of it. But typically, it's one of our favorite products because it works in any weather. It kills over 200 broadleaves, and it allows you to reseed quickly in 2 weeks. Okay? Yes. Pardon me? No, no, no. No, that's very important. The question was, can you put Weed Beater Ultra in your flower bed? The answer is no. But you name it out there. If it blooms, your chickweed, your henbit, that's that purple one that everybody gets so upset about, the little white one, oxalis, that shoots the little spikes out. Anything that blooms, Weed Beater Ultra, and all the ones that I've shown you that are designed for broadleaf will kill it. Yes, ma'am. What was your question?
I think it's the first dumb one of the evening. But the weed preventer that you're talking about, do you use it before you see the, like you knew where they were last year?
Right.
Do you spray before you see them or after?
Right. So on the question was, on the weed preventers, do you know where the weeds were last year? Do you put them down before or after? And the question is before. If you know exactly where they were, you mentioned your backyard then you would go out there, depending on the weather. Could be middle of February if it was nice. It could be in middle of March, depending. You never know what we're going to get in Maryland. Okay, but before that weed comes up, if you were to apply the purple bag or the corn gluten, chances are this will stop any of your problems. Okay, so even right now we go, gee, let's see, we've gone through the purple headed little henbit. All right, we've had the oxalis, we've had the chickweed already now. There are different waves of broadleaf. You have a winter annual and then you have a spring annual. Your spring annuals are like your dandelions and your clover and those things. So there's a whole nother wave coming. So even if you missed your preventer, you could still apply a preventer and stop the second wave from coming.
Same product.
Same product, yeah, yeah, yeah. Not so much, when you see the term weed and feed, that's a post killer. But when you see the word preventer, this guy would actually stop a second wave coming. It can be used, like I said, in flower beds. All right. So, we have so many weeds to talk about, but I want to stay on track. There will be a weed coming out in May, which is known as nutgrass, also known as nutsedge. It's a triangular blade. And what you're going to see happen there is you're going to cut your lawn and you're going to put your lawnmower away. And it seems like the minute you put your lawnmower away, this grass is going to be a 1/4 inch taller than the rest of your grass. It tends to grow in patches. When I say a triangular blade, if you can imagine a very thick blade that's actually V-shaped, okay, tends to grow in patches in sunny areas. This is nutgrass. And why it's so difficult to kill is the simple fact that it produces a nut at the bottom of it. Anything that produces a tube at the bottom, a nut at the bottom, becomes tougher to kill. Your wild onion, or some people call it wild garlic, those are tougher to kill because you can kill the top, but you cannot kill the bottom. So that's where that comes in. Products such as Nutsedge Killer will get that under control. But you'll see that coming out in late May. Okay? Or depending on our weather. Could be tomorrow with our weather. Who knows? Okay. Any particular weed we want to talk about before I move on? Yes, ma'am.
I have these white flowers. I think my brother said they were Star of Bethlehem.
Oh, Star of Bethlehem. Okay.
That's a weed now.
That's a weed.
Yeah.
All right. The question was, she has what is known as Star of Bethlehem. Star of Bethlehem is a very difficult weed to control. Okay, I guess you can find beauty in all things, but there are some weeds that are actually pretty.
It looks
Okay.
like a flower.
It looks like a flower, but it just takes over. Star of Bethlehem should be able to be controlled with the bonide crabgrass and weed killer. This is a very strong killer. This is a combination killer. This is for when you already have your weeds and you're not going to be seeding.
But can you put that in your flower bed?
No, you cannot.
That's where all the...
Okay, so unfortunately, when it comes to noxious weeds and they're in the flower bed, unfortunately, it's going to require elbow grease, okay, to remove them. And then even that, most weed seeds have about 100,000 weed seeds on the head of them. So I love when people say, it's my neighbor next door, he doesn't do anything. Well, unfortunately, it's our neighbors in Iowa as these seeds blow across the whole nation. So I wish it was that easy to blame somebody else, but that's not the case. Star of Bethlehem is a low-growing, mostly white in color, and it,
daisy.
yeah, it looks like a daisy, but it's noxious and very tough to control. Okay. Yes, sir.
Can you eat the nut from the bottom of that, the weed before she was talking about?
I'm sorry?
Can you eat the nut at the bottom of
The
plant
the
weed that, the weed before she was talking about, that you were
And
talking
that weed,
okay, the nutgrass, you mean? Yep. All right. Mr. Seth has asked about nutgrass. All right. Once again, it's going to be triangular in blade. It's going to be very wide blades. It's going to grow very quickly. Okay, so it's easy to spot, and it will have a sheath on the bottom of it. As you pull it up, there will be an extra protection at the bottom of the weed, and if you let it grow long enough, it will produce a nut. Now, there's one other weed that I skipped over, and it's going to be one of those pains for you as well. You'll see a large group or a clump of almost neon grass that has a little flag head on it, a little seed head. And once again, you'll cut your grass and put your mower away, and it seems like this little guy has jumped up a 1/4 inch in that time. That is poa annua. That is annual bluegrass. That is not to be confused with our standard bluegrass. All right, that weed seed head continues to germinate over and over and over, and the patch that is this big this year will be that big next year, and then it'd be throughout your whole yard. Poana can be controlled with a product like your crabgrass killer by Bonide, and also by staying with a crabgrass preventer. Spring, fall, and spring, you can get that seed to stop germinating as well. Poana, little tiny flag head. It's got a little seed head, very easy to spot. All right. Any questions about broadleaf? We know to read the instructions. We know that some will allow us to reseed in 2 weeks. Some will allow us to reseed in 4 weeks. And some of the stronger ones will stop us for 12 weeks or 2 cuttings of your grass. All right. Any other questions? All right. We're going to move on to grub and moles. And those are taking over our county. All right. When you have a warm winter like we've had, a lot of times your rodent-style vole and mole never went dormant. They were out there scurrying around all winter. I joke about how they were on their honeymoon all winter also. Okay? Now we're going to determine the difference between a mole and a vole. A mole is a meat eater. Okay? He is blind. He has short hands, or short arms, I should say. All right? He can't see, but he can hear like no other. He's the one that makes the tunnel. He very rarely comes out of that tunnel unless he's sick. He makes the tunnel. He eats the grub, the big fat white worm. Okay? This is what he eats. Now, he creates the superhighway for the vole. The vole is a long-nosed, short-tailed field mouse, known in the north as a shrew. Okay? He's a vegetarian. So he's in the superhighway that the mole has made, and he's chomp, 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 chomp. He's eating grass, roots. Comes up to your daylilies and your hostas, eats those bulbs, goes around, gets your tulips, eats your peach almond, and ends up eating your rose. Okay? He is a vegetarian. They are 2 separate animals. But unfortunately, when you have one, you normally have 2. You have both. They run in unison together. The mole is a little more territorial. He doesn't really like competition. But what's unique about him is he cannot see. He can hear the grub actually drop into the tunnel. His hair is unidirectional. So if you pet your dog one way, you know, the dog's all happy. You pet the dog the other way and the hair stands up like it's crazy. Well, the mole's hair goes both ways. So he can back up as fast as he can go forward because he hears that big fat grub drop into that tunnel. The vole doesn't have those type of characteristics. He has a long nose and a short tail. But they are, you know, if you have spreading ewes on the ground and all of a sudden they start to look kind of sickly, or Pachysandra, and all of a sudden, well, one half is good and the other half is bad. Or you look, I know I've told the story before, I bought my wife a beautiful peach almond and I planted it, and this goes back a few years, and I came home from work. She said, I don't think that peach almond's looking too good. Well, it's laying like this, right? And you pull it up, and the whole roots are gone. You know? And people, they're amazed when they bring in their rose bushes, and the whole bottom looks like a dog had been chewing on it, because that's what they do. They just constantly chew, chew, chew. They eat the little roots, and then they move on to the bigger stuff. And people just don't understand that there's something that tiny that's doing that much destruction. Once again, they have babies every 8 weeks, and 8 weeks from that time, those babies are having babies. Now, if you're opposed to going after the vole, I want to separate the mole and the vole, but you can trap them on mouse traps. A lot of people will set mouse traps with peanut butter, put it near the hole. The holes will be like nickel or quarter-size holes. Put a flower pot over top of it, put something like a brick on top of that, and you can catch these voles one at a time. Many years ago, I'm on my 24th year here, many years ago, and I'm talking every bit of 15, 20 years ago, we had a customer come in, and he would set mouse traps for the voles, And every time he would catch one, he'd